welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I will be your host for this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening, or at night time, or depending whenever you're going to be listening, because after all, it is your podcast. Now we have creators, we have designers, we've had conference people on, we have had distributors, we have had logistics people on, and behind every great thought, there is obviously has to be a really good brain. So we only not went for a good brain, we went for a giant one. So joining me from the giant brain is Iain McAllister. Yay! Hello, Iain.
Good evening, or morning, or afternoon.
No, well, whenever you happen to be listening. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me on. Nice to speak to you finally.
I know. I'm a kind of a fan of your work. So
thank you.
When you said you would want to come on, I was like, yes, this is good.
Excellent.
So it's all good. It's all good. The reason that we do this is because there are quite simply not enough podcasts about board games. There's us. There's the Unlucky Frog. There's the first player marker or token. I can't remember. It's so terrible. I need to write that down.
Yeah. I don't know about those guys either. Yeah,
no.
I need to track them down.
Track them down and find out about them. There potentially might be another one.
Ooh.
But we might talk about that as
Indeed.
things progress. The second reason that we do this is because me and Iain have been talking on and off, back and forward. He's part of the little kind of Scottish community that we all float about in terms of tabletop. And it was time he actually came on the show and had a chat with us. So here we go. So you well this evening, first of all? You good?
Yeah, not bad at all. Yeah, pretty well.
Good stuff. Good stuff. But the thing we need to find out, and everybody will be itching for, is to find out a little bit about your history with the hobby. So we're going to have a little look back at the years of the past. We're going to have a little look in the nose of the present before we stare off into the eyes of the future. And all in the middle is a beautiful giant brain. So do you want to tell us a little bit? I'm going to keep saying that. For a while I was going to just call you, welcome to the show, it's Iain McAllister from Giant Brian.
Well, either way, it doesn't really matter.
Just see how long we could keep it going until you actually just turned around and said, it's brain. There's a picture of a brain on the logo. It's not a Brian, it's a brain. But anyway, do you want to tell us how you got into the hobby?
Yeah, sure. So I think, getting this hobby properly, my parents are always quite I always used to play some board games, that kind of thing, more traditional games with my parents. But my dad had a pen pal in Ravensburger.
Right.
Of Ravensburger games. You'll see their sort of little blue triangle in a lot of games.
Yeah.
And I started to, when we would go over there to visit, I would pick up games like sort of Sagalan, which I think was called Enchanted Forest over here. Like Gold Grabber, things like that. So getting a bit of exposure to that sort of more German sensibility of game design quite early on. And I sort of became sort of really intrigued by board games then, and I would play sort of board games all the time, and I had some very early design efforts as well that were terrible. We'll not talk about it.
No, we have to talk about it now.
I think I submitted a game about fishing to was it MB Games at the time?
Milton Bradley.
Milton Bradley. When are they still about? I don't actually know. I think they are.
Yeah, I think so.
I think they are, but yeah, I don't really pay attention to that sort of side of the gaming hobby anymore. But I think Milton Bradley still is. So I think I submitted a game at one point. Got a very nice letter back saying no, thank you, but still got a letter back. And I think my sort of I over the course of my sort of school period and into academy, I picked up a little bit of role playing stuff. So fighting fantasy books and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Steve Jackson, Ian Livingston stuff. I always had a lot of those. And then I picked up the advanced fighting fantasy stuff, which was essentially their role-playing game.
I never got into that. I am child of the 70s, 80s, so I remember Warlock of Fire Top Mountain coming out, and I remember a friend saying, "You got to read this." And it's like, well, how do you read it? And you open the book, and it just, you flick through as a book is normal, and you go, there's got numbers on it, and it's got pictures in it, Dave. It's like, it's not a kid's book. And he went, no, read it. And I remember reading that, and then it just kind of like blew my mind.
Yeah,
at
absolutely.
the time. Did you collect them all? Did you have like the full set, or when did
No,
you?
nothing that major. I had a few of them, but yeah, I didn't have like all of them by any means. Have you ever followed? Do you follow Ian Limson on Twitter at all? Because he's shown off like some of the maps, like the sort of like the logic paths through those books, and some of the new ones, and he's shown that off on Twitter, and it's a spider's web. It's an amazing thing to watch. How they design it.
I've looked through. I mean, I remember kind of looking through the kind of the Grail Quest stuff as well. So all those types of books kind of fascinated me, and I think it ended up with me heading down the kind of the rabbit hole. So I'm always fascinated. How do you write a story?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you write 3 separate stories and then do you just split it up, or do you write 7 different stories? Because I remember at primary school, and this is how old I am, the what was it? The Crown of Kings came out, and it was at the time. I think it was 3 books. I think it was or maybe even been 4. There was I think there was the Shamutanti Hills. There was like Care, City Port of Traps. There was like, and then there was like the actual Crown of Kings book. I think there was probably a 3rd one as well.
All right.
But one of our teachers decided to sit us down as a class exercise, and I think he thought it'd be cool as a gimmick to sit and read this book and then get everybody kind of splitting into groups and making decisions. And of course that was the big mistake. He actually ended up kind of saying, right, which one are you picking? And people said, oh, we want to do this. And then, okay, so what do you want to do? Oh, we want to do this. So he kept them separate, and then as time went on, I mean, within about like say half an hour, everything was splintered. It was an absolute mess, and he actually needed to kind of stop. So you went from that into the advanced.
Yeah, like I think I only ran it a couple of times, but the Advanced Fighting Science stuff was basically their sort of take on a GM'd role playing game like D&D or something like that. It was actually sort of a little bit of a precursor to, like, some of the mechanics in it had a precursor to what you see in a lot of the indie role playing game scenes, where they talked about the story being like a film and having very defined scenes and acts and things like that. And that's something that a lot of the indie role playing games later on took up as well. So it was sort of a precursor to those kind of things. I think I only ran it a couple of times for some friends I'd press ganged into doing so. I've still got them somewhere. I think they're on a shelf behind me right now.
Really?
And I think they got re-released a few years ago through someone. Though I didn't quite like the format of those books. The original ones were just the same size as the Fine Fantasy books. The sort of just little novels, but quite thick. So yeah, there's like Dungeoneer and Alancia, Black Sand, and Dungeoneer.
Is Dungeoneer got the one where it's got the green monster on the front?
Yeah, it does indeed.
Because I had that one, and it was the one about, was it not in Dungeoneer? You could run a campaign about somebody being a werewolf or something like that, or going through. I remember
possibly, yeah.
I remember trying. Oh, that was like this is my childhood. I feel like I'm on some kind of psychological counselling and I'm talking back about my adventures in role-playing. But
or like, this is your life. Richard, these are your games from your childhood.
Because I'll feel really, really old. But yeah, they were really, that was kind of like the precursor to kind of that. Did that kind of take you into the role-playing stuff? I mean, did you go kind of like full D&D after that, or did you stay along with the kind of the board games, or did other activities kind of get in the way and kind of draw you away from the hobby?
Yeah, I did sort of Dungeoneer and that kind of thing towards the end of primary school, and then like throughout my academy period in academy, which would be about 6 years, from like sort of 12 to 18, I didn't really participate in the hobby that much at all. Like I still had board games at home and that kind of thing, and like some of the like Ravensburger games like we were talking about earlier, but yeah, I didn't really get into D&D and stuff like that at all until I came to university. And when I got to university, I met my now brother-in-law, David.
Really? Oh my goodness. Okay.
I'm sure we'll come back to that.
I think we have to.
Absolutely.
Like-
So yeah, I met my friends David, Ben, and another David.
Yeah.
There's Davids everywhere because it's Scotland.
Yes.
Um,
Can't wait for them.
we played. I picked up like Settlers of Catan, and we like came across Blackline Games in Edinburgh, which was then in the basement of Flip, which is now like a Tesco on South Clark Street, which was like a weird sort of fashion place, but they rented space downstairs, and Liam McConnell, who runs Blackline Games, was just starting up down there.
Yeah.
So he had things like sort of Car Wars and a couple of bits and pieces and that kind of thing, but very, very small. So we came across him, and I picked up Catan, and we played a lot of Settlers of Catan. I just finally sold off my old beaten up copy recently.
Really?
Yeah. It just wasn't getting to my table anymore. So I sold
What's the
else.
attraction with it? Because I must admit, I kind of don't get it. I don't know why, and I don't know if it's because it's the luck. The luck thing has always kind of got to me a bit. And I guess that's because I've never played it enough to kind of fully strategize it. But why did you get it so much to the table? What's the beauty of Catan for you?
I think at the time it was something so different to what I'd played before, to the sort of like really sort of simple family games like Sagaland and Gold Grabber and other things that I had as a kid.
Yeah,
it was very, very different. It had a sort of negotiation element.
Yeah.
It had a modular board that was different every time. I mean, yeah, you're right. Your criticisms of Catan are totally valid. There is a heavy random element and people can shut you down and shut you out. But yeah, I knew people who were more obsessed with it than me. But it was very simple to get to the table as well. It's easy to play, so you could play it in a very short period of time while having a couple of beers. So yeah, it was a good laugh. And Ben was quite enthusiastic about Vampire: The Eternal Struggle, the vampire card game.
Yeah.
So I like sort of the hobby doors were opened to me then. Basically, that's where I sort of started to get into like the hobby side of the gaming, I suppose, if you want to call it that. So like collectible card games like Vampire and Seventh Sea and the original Doomtown as well.
Oh right, okay, yeah. Because is Doomtown not kind of finished up? No, it's still kicking about.
Doomtown keeps having people running in with like paddles and like resurrecting it.
Yeah,
it's really weird. So there was Doomtown Reloaded, which came around, and that's a really nice reimagining. The game has still got a lot of its sort of 90s, early 2000s sensibilities about it. But yeah, they did a really nice addition, like a wooden box set, and I couldn't resist, and I picked that up.
Just to pick it up.
Yeah, it's just shiny, nice thing. Nice poker chips and all sorts of stuff in it, and I followed through that, and it followed the new one, Doomtown Reloaded, followed like the Fantasy Flight LCG model.
Yes, so, like, it did. Yeah,
like fixed expansions. You knew what you were getting. There was no randomness. Whereas the original, much like a lot of games during the mid-90s, with the massive CCG glut you had at the time, were all collectible. And then it sort of died off again.
Yeah, I remember somebody at the club, Andy. Was playing it kind of non-stop, and he was actually going as far as kind of going to tournaments.
Yeah.
About kind of like even like 2 years ago. I think he was heading over to, I think he might have been heading over to Edinburgh or something for kind of like for tournaments, and then all of a sudden, as quick he was like really, really into it, it kind of just disappeared. And then I think it was almost like kind of things like Destiny kind of took back over, but no doubt it'll get resurrected again. It's like one of these strange genres that keeps kind of disappearing, and then somebody says, "Oh, Western cowboy game, let's do that."
Well, it has sort of resurrected again. There was a Kickstarter last year. Pinnacle picked it up. So Pinnacle had the original rights to the Deadlands role-playing game.
Ah, right, okay.
Which is one of the first role-playing games. Like that was one of the first sort of proper, in inverted commas, role-playing games that I ran. Yeah. And it was a beast of a system with like poker chips and cards and all sorts of things. And it had a resurrection as a Savage Worlds setting. And Savage Worlds is basically the Deadlands system, but all the sort of crap sort of taken out of it. And really, really, really streamlined down. But Pinnacle now have the rights to the card game as well, and they ran a Kickstarter last year for a new expansion, sort of 150 cards or something like that, like a big box kind of expansion kind of thing. And I back that because I quite like Doomtown, and I think they're sort of planning to sort of keep it ticking over in the background. There's still a very fervent community for it. There's a lot of people who really love that game.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of collecting out of nostalgia more than anything. I don't actually get to play it that often.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're planning to sort of like once a year do like another Kickstarter for here's our next expansion, and would you like to back this again, that kind of thing. Keep it ticking over that way.
Yeah.
Which is great use of the platform.
Yeah, which is pretty good because you kind of want that. I think that's one of maybe one of the reasons Star Realms kind of seems to keep kind of ticking over is because every couple of years, Robert kind of twiddles his thumbs and then says, "I'm a bit bored. I'll do another expansion." Or they just did a complete kind of new version of the game kind of recently for kind of Star Realms. And I was like, I'm talking about kind of like, there's not an awful lot of Western themed stuff, but Western Legends has just been out on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And I was talking to one of the guys who was developing it about 3 weeks ago, so I should really try and remember. I'm getting old, Ian. I'm getting dice brain or something.
Yeah, I have to write all this stuff down now.
I'm telling you, I have to do that as well. It's lucky I'm speaking to you wearing like trousers, to be perfectly honest.
Oh yeah, trousers. I should have put those on. Yeah.
Sometimes, as I say, I've never told anyone now, but I usually podcast naked.
Wow. Well,
not really. That's not true.
Everything's taking a turn, really.
It's kind of like, this escalated quickly. I didn't realise it was that kind of podcast.
Late night with Richard.
Exactly. Just settle back and grab your dice as we take you on a journey. Let's see if you can roll a 20. And so on and so forth. And let's move away from the ASMR stuff. But you went. You say you mentioned Doomtown. I mean, is that you sound like you've kind of been like, apart from obviously the 6 years of not playing, it sounds like the kind of the hobby has been kind of a constant in your life since then. Is that kind of like a true thing to say?
Yeah, that'd be fairly accurate. I mean, since I got back, I'm trying to remember when I got back into role playing properly, but I picked up Deadlands because like the setting was cool and it intrigued me, and yeah, the system was a bit of a beast, but I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
So I ran that for a while at Grand Edinburgh Adventure Society, GIAS, which is the University Role Playing Society, and I've basically been a GM since then. I've GM'd for like various groups over the years, like GM'd at GIAS, and then when I finished university, I had a regular group in my house, and I've had almost the same regular group of players for Wednesday night games at my place for 10 years, something like that. Must be close on that. Like a little change here and there, but basically the same group of people, essentially. Like include my brother-in-law and get a bunch of close friends, and I've been the primary GM in that group for a long time. Though recently a mate of mine has taken over and he's been running Shadowrun for a couple of years. And he's been sort of taking over those responsibilities recently.
I mean, do you find do you get into like a natural rhythm as a GM? I mean, are you constantly thinking about ideas, or are you at the point now where you're kind of got a natural kind of rhythm to the group as you're kind of playing, or do you like to shake it up a bit to kind of keep people interested?
There's definitely with the group that I'm with, there's definitely some games that appeal to them and some that don't. So I'm quite into the indie RPG scene. I run a couple of groups of Blades outside of that group, of Blades in the Dark, which is the John Harper RPG, which is absolutely fantastic. Such a good RPG. Basically about being thieves in a sort of Victorian style fantasy world, fantasy city that you can't escape because there's horrible ghosty nastiness outside it, and you're criminals, like carrying out your activities. But it's got some indie sensibilities to it. I think it might work for my group, but the group I run with tend to like a slightly more trad game, so things like D&D, Shadowrun, that kind of thing work better because they like the experience systems and leveling up and that kind of thing. I've tried out some of the sort of more indie stuff like Fate, and I've tried running Diaspora, which is the sort of hard sci-fi Fate game, and a couple of other things. And some of those have gone down better than others. Apocalypse World was okay. I'd quite like to run Blades for them because I think it might all be the sort of thing I like and the sort of thing they like, because it's got a sort of fairly solid experience system built into it, and you level up your characters and your gang as you go and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's came in the game for the group, and my board game collection as well is very similar. It's catered essentially for that group because they're the people I play with most. So it's a matter of when I look at a new game, and I'm like, should I buy this? It's like, will I get this to the table with my group?
That's well, I suppose that's an interesting. It's probably a very logical and sensible kind of way to look at it. Apart from looking at it and going, "Is it new? Is it shiny? Shall I buy it?" Which seems to be a lot of the things.
Like, I've been looking at the new Dinosaur Island Kickstarter, and the only worker placement game I have in my collection is Lords of Waterdeep. That's about as worker placement-y as my group can take. Like, a lot of the heavier Euros just don't gel with either me or my group at all. I'm not a great fan of the heavier Euros.
Yeah.
But Dinosaur Island, maybe, but it's a big commitment as well. It's like $120 buy-in for the full thing.
Yeah, is that with the new expansions then?
Yeah, with the expansion, and I was thinking about maybe going to the level that gets the 2-player as well, because I think it might be something I could get to the table with my wife Kath as well, maybe.
I mean, I think if Pandasaurus run this like they ran the last one, there'll be the option to kind of jump in at a later time, a later date, and kind of increase what you were committing to.
Yeah, that's true.
So you've always got that kind of option as well.
Yeah.
But they've had as usual, there's been a couple of the moaning Marys going on about, you're just, we were told it was an exclusive and now you're just putting it out there again and people can get the deluxe version again. It's like, well, yeah, at the time, but at the time, at the time when Pandasaurus launched it, they didn't expect it to do like kind of 6 figures. So there's obviously been a demand for it, and as with all these things, there's been people kind of going back and going, actually, I wouldn't have minded a slice of that, and it turns out that it's kind of sold out. It's kind of sold really, really well. Do I want the 2-player version? I'm not sure.
Yeah, me neither.
I've kind of looked at it and went, again, in your situation, it's like, is there going to be somebody that I'm going to sit down and just play this 2-player? I guess with you doing the card stuff as well, it's like, well, do I play Dinosaur Island or do I sit down with a game of Doomtown, which I know and love and kind of know the system? So we'll see. Brian Lewis he's coming on, I think next week or the week after to have a chat. So I'll kind of ask him, see what he thinks. But
I mean, I find looking at Kickstarters and figuring out whether I want to back them or not really hard. I back very little, to in the sense that I rather than like the $1 pledge levels, which I have a weird question about that, like, because I hear people saying like, I back this, I back that, and then they back to like a $1 level. It's like, is that really backing it? I don't know. Like, I'm not in that ecosystem enough to figure out whether there's an answer to that or not. But I bought the game as such. I find it really hard to look at a Kickstarter, especially like one that might be like a year or more down the line and is asking for like $100 plus of my money. It's like, will that be good? Like, I backed 2 Rooms and a Boom off the shop and sit down recommendation. Yeah. So I was looking for sort of a large number player party game at the time to sort of fill a gap in my collection. And that took 2 years to get to me. And it was like, basically just a deck of cards, and because they plasticized the cards, which was the major problem they had as far as I understand it, the first thing I did was take it out of the box and then throw all the plastic cards over a room because they were slippy. Took them out of the shrink wrap, boom. I'm like, oh, okay, good.
It's like playing. Was it when you play Bez? If you've ever played Bez's Yogi, and those cards are plasticized as well, but at least they can got a matte finish on them. Yeah. So it's not like playing with a sleeve deck of cards where they go everywhere. I mean, they're quite tactile and they're quite quite easy and quite kind of nice,
Yeah.
kind of nice to hold. I think the dollar thing. I think the dollar thing becomes more and more popular because I think there's a bigger section of the community who like to go along for the ride and like to be involved in the community and see what's happening. And I think, and you've also got to remember about all the creators as well. There'll be a lot of people who will be looking at their Kickstarter campaign and thinking, I have no idea what I'm going to be doing, so the best thing to do is to maybe jump on a campaign that's working and see how it works. So I think there's kind of value in that. I can understand as a creator having say $57 backers on your pledge level, and you think, well, you could actually be 57 full backers. Must be really, really frustrating, especially if people maybe wait until the actual pledge manager kicks in. But then the other side of it, as I say, there's some people who like to go along for the ride. I mean, a lot of the Kickstarter stuff, the joy of the Kickstarter is sometimes the campaign of the Kickstarter, which I don't know if you've seen that. I've seen a lot. I've seen a little bit. There seems to be a kind of a line of grief. Almost, that there's all this, yes, we did it, guys, together with me, hands joined, we can do this, let's reach this last thing. And as soon as it finishes and it gets 6 months down the line, it's almost like, where's my game?
Yeah, it does, like, yeah, I totally get your point about the $1 level, like, involving people in the community, but there's definitely going to be a segment of that community that's then going to feel slightly entitled to your time and your replies and that kind of thing, I suppose.
Yeah,
and that brings with it its own set of problems. I mean, most backers, as far as I can see, are like, yeah, whatever. There's been a delay here or this here, and as long as the communication's okay, that seems to be the key to the successful Kickstarter campaigns. If you're communicating well with your backers, there's not too many problems. But if you just stay silent for several months and then have an update, and stay silent for several months and have an update, then people get really narky. And I can sort of understand that. They want to know what's going on.
Yeah, I think if the community's been kind of really vibrant during the campaign, and then all of a sudden you do kind of go into, well, listen, guys, it's not like we're working really, it's not like we're not working really hard here. You know, the files are away. We're waiting for the guys to print the stuff out and then kind of send it off to us. I can see the frustration in that. I can see people saying, well, all you need to say is there's nothing happening. But it's like, I guess as a creator, do you want to be that person that's sending out an update that says, guys, there's nothing to report, I'm still waiting for the final stuff to happen? I guess, I mean, you kind of think, well, do I bother or I just leave it? And it turns out a lot of the time, you normally, you should have bothered kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is a really tricky one, because if you're not in like marketing or that kind of thing, like the instinct would be to not bug people, but from you are running a business point of view, you want to communicate to those people and say, here's what's going on. It is admittedly nothing right now, but just to let you know that we're still alive and breathing and doing things.
Yeah. I mean, I think I even saw that a couple of times from, Isaac Childress when he was doing the Gloomhaven stuff, and when he was doing the founders of Gloomhaven, he was kind of like saying, yeah, guys, nothing much to report, but just to let you know, I'm kind of still kicking about, and this is where we're going to be going next, and stuff like that as well. It depends, because I mean, it's really weird, because I think if you're involved in the Kickstarter community quite a lot, I think there's sometimes a tendency for you to exist in that Kickstarter bubble and look at where your next game is coming from that Kickstarter bubble.
Yeah, sure. It was really interesting to me, like, because I'm part of the board game exposure group now. They had a little poll at the end of last year, like, sort of what was your favorite game from 2017, and I came to the realization that I'd played almost nothing released in 2017, like almost nothing, because a lot of them like back Kickstarters fairly frequently and like get Kickstarters through the post.
Yeah,
but I just don't. And a lot of new games come out through Kickstarter now, so I don't get to see them as much. Like, I saw some stuff at Expo and stuff like that, like things like Escape the Dark Castle, which I really advocated for because I thought was excellent, and other sort of bits and pieces across them. But yeah, like they consume a lot of the new games, and I'm getting to see some of that now because I'm part of the group, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the most time, I'm sort of consuming games from a couple of years back. Now that they're out, and I can like pick them up in my hands and read reviews and figure out whether I should add them to my collection or not. It's a really interesting one, that.
Yeah, as I say, I think some people exist. I know some people for a fact will never ever go near a Kickstarter campaign. They'll just be like, no, I'm not. I mean, they've been either that or they're just like, well, I'm not interested because I know of, I know my mate Steve. Steve backed the Kickstarter, and the backers came to his house in the middle of the night and removed all his teeth. And it's like, really? Yes, apparently they were collecting enamel for the figurines. Wow, I'm never using Kickstarter.
Yeah,
you kind of get that.
I've got a good friend of mine who's vehemently anti-Kickstarter. He's got very much the opinion of like, come back to me when your game is actually out in retail, and I can buy it from you directly. Which is a perfectly reasonable attitude. I can understand it. But like Tom, I interviewed Thomas Pike in the Meeting in Mind series I've started recently, and he said something that I hadn't thought about before, which is that some Kickstarter folks want to be publishers, so they want to like put out loads of games and that kind of thing, and actually become a publisher. Cool. Some are just designers who want to put their game out into the world and be done with it.
Yeah,
and that's perfectly fine too.
Yeah,
but realizing that there were those two distinct kind of things was a sort of like a little bit of a revelation to me. It was like, oh yeah, that's not a bad point actually.
Yeah, I mean, let's look. I mean, okay, going back to when I said about Western Legends earlier on. I mean, that's Colossal Games. They've just done a Kickstarter for Kami-sama,
and they've got another one just coming for a sci-fi one. I can't remember. The name of.
And Western Legends designer is not the same designer as Kami-sama. They're two. No. It's two different people. Yeah. So they are Colossal and are using it in the same vein that say Simon are using it, in the same way that Steamforge have used it. A lot of even some of these other businesses have used it, where they're using it as a platform to maybe get a designer's game published, because it's an excellent way of gauging the interest and also kind of managing what your potential print run could be.
Sure.
And then on the other side of it, you do get your kind of, you get your Bezes of this world, your Mark McKinnons of this world, Justin Morgan Davis of this world, who are using Kickstarter because they are a designer, and that is one of the ways that the few ways they can get their games made. Yeah. Because I don't know. I mean, I played Bez's game Yogi.
Yeah.
And she explained it within like 5 minutes. But I looked at it and I mean, it was originally in a bind. And she's one of these people that's managed to get herself published. But I thought, well, if you hadn't gone to Kickstarter in the first place, would that have ended up on that journey, or would it have sat down as a set of how many cards, that you would maybe brung out at a party or something like that? So I guess there's that, there's that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, because I've done a little bit of publishing myself. I had a game called Revenge of the Bee Movie.
Yeah.
In the early days of UK Games Expo, when it was still in a Mason's Hall in the middle of Birmingham.
Oh, right, okay.
Which was a fantastic venue and really interesting, and full of like cases of weird artifacts and pictures of like the members on the wall and all sorts. But when Games Expo first started out, I was a member of a group called the Collective Endeavour, which was a sort of a group of small indie RPG publishers. But I wanted to put out a card game, and so I did some of the very early print-on-demand stuff with the now infamous Ken Whitman, and printed out just printed cards through him in sort of lots of 100 to 200 each, rather than like the thousands or tens of thousands you need to go to China or something like that. And that model still exists. You can drive-through cards, which now exists alongside the drive-through RPG site. You can still print out sort of cards on demand, and there's Game Crafter and things like that. So I think there's a route to doing that sort of thing, rather like bypassing Kickstarter and just sort of printing some games that you have some faith in at a low cost, and just printing out a few, like maybe a couple of hundred at most. Yeah. Taking them to a con and selling them and having a laugh doing it that way. But yeah, Kickstarter is obviously it gives you the marketing and all that kind of thing as well. If you have a really successful Kickstarter, then people will notice.
Well, I think you've got the Game Crafter. And
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, you had sites like that that were in America, which allowed people to go ahead and kind of, I guess, create their game, upload their files and stuff like that. But again, you had to have kind of like the kind of the money kind of behind
yeah,
that in order to be able to create the stuff kind of in the first place.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, is there anything that I mean, staying away from Kickstarter or jumping into Kickstarter, is there anything that's kind of floating your boat at the moment that you've mentioned? You've said, well, Dinosaur Island. It's good. It's certainly worthwhile playing. Have you played Dinosaur Island?
I haven't, but I've been talking to Rory of Board Meetings. I think you've had him on as well.
Yes, yeah.
And we're talking about playing some games over Tabletopia, which
Yes.
I haven't used for a while. I used it for a couple of reviews last year with Farsight and Subterra. I reviewed both of those.
Yeah.
I reviewed both of those by playing them.
Shaw's game, yeah.
Yeah, I
Lewis
reviewed
Shaw's
both
game,
of those by playing them with Lewis and Peter, respectfully over Tabletopia, and it was a little rough then, but it's now on Steam and it seems a lot smoother and shinier.
Yeah.
So we might play some games together over Tabletopia, and he might teach me like Dinosaur Island, that kind of thing. And that seems like a really interesting way to get people to look at your games without having to fork out a lot of money. And it's my understanding that like board game apps and that kind of thing, like the apps for like whatever board game is, like Suburbia or whatever, tend to have a good knock-on effect at retail as well. Like people buy the board game after playing the app and that kind of thing. It was the thing that made me love Star Realms. I can't thank the Star Realms app team enough, because I think it's really funny, because it made me get Star Realms, a copy of the game Star Realms, only to never play the physical game of Star Realms, because then I realised you had to be clever and figure out what your your life points, or your whatever you call your reputation, or whatever was physically with your mind. And I was like, oh, I can just do this. I can just do this on an app, kind of instead. It's kind of interesting, because I mean, we get, and you probably get this as well, you start to get emails from people who are still willing to send you a physical prototype of the game. And I'm just wondering, is it easier to make a physical prototype of the game, or is it easier to maybe set it up on something like Tabletopia and get people to play it kind of that way? It's kind of interesting, because I would assume it would save you an awful lot more money putting it on Tabletopia than it would actually having a prototype. Yeah, I haven't tried to design Tabletopia or like Tabletop Simulator or anything like that yet, but it's something I'm considering for playtesting in the future, because I run the Edinburgh playtest group. And it's something I'm considering for my own designs, to sort of rapidly prototype things and see how easy that is. So it's something I'm going to take a swing at soon, is like having a look at how easy it is to put a game onto Tabletopia. I do find Tabletopia slightly odd in that it's not like an app that does stuff for you. It's literally just a simulation of the tabletop, so it feels a little odd. Like it's not doing stuff for you, and it's not quite good enough to be a full simulation either.
Yeah.
So it's somewhere in between, but I'm sure that's something I can get used to.
Yeah, it's kind of like you do need the other person on the other side to be kind of like holding your hand and leading you through, because it is basically, it's somebody described to me as it's like cardboard sandbox.
Totally.
It is, the pieces are going to be lying in front of you. You'll still need the rules. You'll still need somebody to know the game. It's not like an app. It's just like a kind of like a simulation. I mean, you obviously, I mean, talking to you, you've got a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience. So, I mean, what made you decide to kind of say, right, okay, I'm going to start kind of essentially creating content?
Well, the Giant Brain has been around as a company since I don't know when. A long time ago. Like when I was publishing Revenge of the Bee movie and its sequel, the Giant Brain logo was there and the Giant Brain company name was there, and that was come up with at one of the Gen Cons that I attended, talking to a bunch of people, because I had this idea for a company that might put out sort of educational games and that kind of thing, and I wanted to have that the name have that edge to it. And then I sort of let it go fallow for a while. Didn't really do very much with the website or anything like that. and I was sort of like putting out the occasional article on the blog and that kind of thing, and then about a year ago, I just decided to like go. Well, I quite enjoy writing about games, so I'll have a proper dig at this. And like Games Expo is coming up, so I applied for a press pass and shockingly enough got one. And yeah, it just sort of went from there and sort of snowballed it from there into like actual content, and then producing like series like Beyond the Veil for Arkham Horror, and recently with Meeting of Minds, where I'm interviewing written interviews with indie publishers and all sorts in the UK gaming scene. I've got one with David Wright, who's doing Tabletop Scotland coming up.
Oh, good old David.
Yeah,
I do like him.
Yeah, I really like David, and I'm running the playtest section of Tabletop Scotland. I'm helping him run that.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'll be in charge of that section of Tabletop Scotland. Really, really, really looking forward to Tabletop Scotland. Like a proper con in Scotland is going to be great.
I'm proper excited for it as well.
Yeah,
I know it's only half an hour away from where I live.
Well, my mother-in-law lives nearby, so yeah, I might stay in Perth that night because there's most likely going to be drinking involved.
Yes.
Who knew? But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And he's David's got a really good team, and he's got a solid plan behind him of what he wants to do with it.
Yep, and he's also got John as well.
Yeah.
Sorry. Poor old John Harper. We do love him. He's been on the show. He's magnificent. I saw him last week. He doesn't deserve the flack I did get him, but in some ways he does. And I'm not going to say anything about Dave because he's taller than me and he could probably put me into the ground quite easily.
Yeah, he's
a big man. He is a big man. But so you started. I mean, you've been fairly kind of prolific with what you've been doing. I mean, you're putting up regular reviews. I mean, as a content creator, have you just got into the mindset as I'm going to keep creating content until somebody says go and stop creating content? I mean, do you think you have to kind of have that mindset?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, to an extent, like you want positive feedback, you want the community to like your stuff. And you want to like see the followers on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram increasing at a regular rate. But in the end, at the start of the year, so last year I was putting out sort of content on a sort of semi-regular basis. I didn't really have a schedule in mind. I was just putting out stuff as it occurred. I put out quite a lot of stuff in the run up to UK Games Expo where I wrote about every single exhibitor. That almost broke me. I think I had 14 articles in the end on that. Yeah, there's a lot of exhibitors. I'm doing something a little different this year because there's over 300 this year, at least. So I'm doing something a little different this year.
Get a bigger pen.
Get a bigger pen and a can of Red Bull, and everything will be fine. So like at the start of the year, I decided I'd start to put out more regular content. So I'm putting out content on a Tuesday and a Friday. Yeah. And I'm writing all sorts of stuff. So I've started to put series together, so I've got something a little easier to write about. So, I've got Beyond the Veil, which is looking at the Arkham Horror LCG, which is a game I absolutely love, and it's breaking down the mechanical sort of, because each scenario is different, and each scenario is trying to tell a little story, so it's looking at how the mechanics support the story and that kind of thing, and sort of breaking it down. It's spoiler heavy, so don't go there if you haven't. Each one has the title of the scenario. Don't read on if you haven't. If you haven't played that scenario, but yeah, they're sort of like talking about how clever the design team are, because I think the design team are spot on for that game. I've started Gloomhaven Diaries recently, because I picked up Gloomhaven, and that game has blown me away. If that
that's funny.
If that isn't my game of the year, I'll be very, very surprised.
I spoke to I was chatting to Luke Hector from the Broken Meeple.
Sure.
And he was talking about Gloomhaven. And he thinks it's average.
Really?
which is fair enough.
I mean, I think, like we were talking about Kickstarter earlier, I think Gloomhaven is the perfect example of a Kickstarter game. There are very few publishers you could go to that game and go, yeah, I'd like to produce a box that's about £140 and is essentially just a world in a box and has all this stuff in it. It's like, get out.
Exactly. I've actually made them, and you've done miniatures. Well, why is everything in white cardboard boxes? because it's secret.
Secret things. That's the thing. Like,
I can't show you what's in
Yeah.
it. Show me the content. I can't show you secret things.
yeah, that Isaac Child. He's such a troll. Like I'd started to organize, and I did a post about sort of organizing the box because it's a beast of a thing that. And then a couple of people I'm playing it with were nice enough to buy me the basically wooden organizer for it,
Which is also known as Kallax shelving.
Yeah,
Because it just fits in the box.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I was putting that together, and I took out the tray and found the hidden envelope below the tray, which just says on it, "Open this when you feel you deserve it." That's just such a troll. Because every session, after every session we play, we like pick it out and go, "Do we deserve this yet?" And we're like, maybe. I don't know.
Oh my
What's
goodness.
in there?
That'll be fantastic.
Yeah, we've been playing. We're 4 sessions in now. I've just put up the third part of the Gloomhaven Diaries, which is called the Journey of Larimar, which is my Cragheart. So it's more narrative and from his point of view of what's going on in the world, and that's sort of how I'm going to continue. So every 3 or 4 sessions we get in, I'll write up another one of those from about the story from his point of view. I think we might be the bad guys. It's possible. It's possible we're the bad guys.
Oh my goodness, that reminds me. That's that sketch, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you think we're the bad?
that?
That's a brilliant sketch.
I don't know. I've just been looking around at the uniforms and the way we march, and
Yeah.
how we're perceived by the public, and I think we're the bad guys.
Have you seen our uniforms? They've got little skulls on them. Yeah, I love that sketch. It's fantastic. But yeah, it's turned out that we're basically the bad guys, which I love. I love that is emerging as a story from that game. I really, really love board games where you get an emergent story that is interesting and something you don't expect and surprising. That to me is a perfect board game. It's kind of why I like the Arkham Horror LCG so much, because you get little moments of story emerging from that. So yeah, I've got those 2. I've got Beyond the Veil, I've got the Gloomhaven Diaries, and I've started recently Meeting of Minds, which is interviewing people from across the UK gaming industry.
Yeah.
Publishers, designers, that kind of thing. And yeah, I've got David Wright lined up. I've got Kevin Young from
Kevin.
Legends Untold lined up, and who else I've got lined up? I've sent one off to Matt from Steamforge Games, who a friend of mine put me in touch with.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, so I've been asking him a few things. Who else I've got lined up? Bad Cat Games.
Justin.
Yeah, Justin from
awesome.
Bad Cat Games, who I need to get. I'm going to hopefully get that and a review of Gladiatores in the run-up to their Kickstarter. I've got one to Wrench Games, Blind Wizard Brawl, which I backed.
Yeah, we don't speak about them.
Oh,
We don't speak
because
about
they
them.
are wizards.
They definitely are wizards.
Yeah,
they just,
they that's
came on
fair.
the show and that's what they said. So, no, we don't even talk about them. In fact, we cut them out of any episode that they're mentioned in.
Well, just for you, I'll cancel that questionnaire. I mean, they can fill it out, but I'll never see the light of day.
Well, yeah, just, if you obviously get the questionnaire back, print it out, and then send them a video of you setting it on fire and laughing maniacally at them. Or, in fact, send the questionnaire to me, and I can film a video of me laughing maniacally at their questionnaire and just, going through it with a red pen and going, wrong, wrong, wrong,
Absolutely.
wrong, you get an F, you failed the exam. This is me burning your precious little wizardy questionnaire. Not that I'm a bit obsessed about it. I'm going to step away because my vein at the side of my head has started to twitch. I mean, as a content nonsense aside, as a content creator, are you writing for the enjoyment of it, or are you conscious about writing to get people to get their eyes on it?
I'm conscious of trying to produce good reviews that people will find interesting to read. So, I don't want to produce really short reviews that are back of a cereal box kind of stuff. Because what's the point in that? I want to say this is what I think of this game for these reasons, and I want to dive into it a little bit more. So generally word count wise, I'm trying to hit around the 1,000 to 2,000 word mark on most reviews to actually have some time to delve into it and that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm although you're conscious of having the following and getting Facebook likes or whatever and that kind of thing. I'm just trying to produce good stuff best I can. Most of the time, just trying to write well. I think I had a turning point sort of last year in my writing. Initially, my review writing was fairly stiff. I'd have to say, like, sort of, it's pretty dry. And then the Tabletop Cafe in Edinburgh closed down, and I wrote an article that you can find on my site called Tabletop Cafe The End. Yeah, that was very personal. I sort of poured my heart into it and said, like, this place was great and it's a real shame it's died, and here's why these places are fantastic for the communities, etc., etc. And that was a little turning point in my writing style, and I started to like pour a bit more of myself into reviews and just have a go at like putting my personality in reviews a bit more. And I think that started to get me a bit more traction with reviewers and occasional company getting in touch and being nice enough to give me a copy of a game and that kind of thing. I still don't get a lot of that. I get a bit of it through the Board Game Exposure group, obviously. But yeah, I still get occasional people contacting me and like sending me a game or two to review, which is nice. And I'm trying, one of my projects for the year is to try and get through my collection for reviews. So that's not going well so far, but I'll get there in the end. But yeah, hopefully by the end of the year, maybe sort of early into next, I'll have every game in my collection will have a review attached to it, and I'll have a rating for it on Board Game Geek and that kind of thing as well.
Are you finding you're kind of settling into a steady pace then?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, like I sometimes fall behind a little bit. So like after we're finished up tonight, I'll be finishing off my article for tomorrow. But like I've got this weekend off, so I'll probably sort of bash out a couple more articles for next week, and that'll put me ahead a little bit of the game. But yeah, I'm enjoying just sitting down and writing and like thinking about a game and like just pouring out some words onto the screen. Tend to sort of like take a first draft, which is just like consciousness onto a page, and then have an edit of it. But yeah, no, I'm really enjoying it, and like I haven't felt any burnout as such yet. I've always got stuff to write about, all this stuff at the back of my mind to put down on paper. So yeah, no, it's been good.
I think if you enjoy it, I think that's half the battle.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I think I get to the point where I'm just like, I can't be bothered. Yeah. I think that's when you need to step away, because I think it turns into almost like a job.
Yeah.
If you're producing it, I guess it depends. It depends on, because while we're prolific with our content, we're hardly very timely. I mean, it's not like you can wake up on a Monday morning at 8 o'clock and there'll be an episode there. You can wake up on a Monday, a Wednesday, a Tuesday afternoon, a Saturday morning, and there'll be various episodes there. But that's down to timing, it's down to Kickstarters, it's down to when people want to speak to you. That's just one of these. It's just kind of one of these things. I mean, if you looked into things like videos and stuff, is that something that you would consider doing, or are you quite happy kind of staying with the kind of the writing side of things at the moment?
I tried a little bit of video stuff. I can't remember when it was. I think it was when I got Tiny Epic Western through Kickstarter. I did a wee unboxing video just out of sheer curiosity to see if I could do something. Yeah. And it was okay, but I can't be bothered. There's a lot of effort. I have massive respect for people like Shop and Sit Down and No Pun Included and people like that really put out fantastic videos, really good content, and take the time to do it. But I don't have the time, inclination, or skills to do that. I'm looking into podcasting right now, and I'm starting something up with a couple of friends. But I from the core of the Giant Brain will always be the written word, I think, and I really like writing that stuff. So yeah, I think that will always be the core of it.
I think it's because you can rework writing as well.
Yeah, you can always go back.
You can go back and kind of play around with it. I think you need to. It's like, when we're chatting just now, there's certain things I'll probably listen back to in 6 months and go, what are you saying that for? You sound like, stupid. But then you just have to kind of let it go at the time. I think the trouble is, I've done, or I will do, and I have been doing kind of written stuff, and my written stuff takes longer than my podcast stuff, because my written stuff, I'm really overly critical of myself. I mean, I'll write something and then I'll rewrite entire paragraphs 3 or 4 times over, and then I'll realise it's changed the entire tone of the piece, and then I'll rewrite the whole thing, and then I'll run away and cry about it. But So the fact that you're so prolific is kind of really quite kind of cool.
Thank you.
You dropped that horrible word podcast in there,
Yeah.
which screams at me that at the moment we're doing okay for competition because as I say, there's only us and the unlucky frog gaming people that I have to worry about, and they're doing some really, really good stuff. So I'm running a bit scared of them.
They are. Yep.
What kind of stuff?
In fact, why am I talking to you? Really? Yeah, just.
I know. It's okay. Finish it. And that was Iain McAllister. Unfortunately, the rest of the episode got cut off.
I swear, if you edit this, then that's the end of it.
I know exactly. I'll be just. Iain.
We've lost
See,
the
I could
signal.
do this because I could just change. This is my side of the track.
Absolutely.
So I don't have to cut this. I can silence this bit of you talking. Just go, Iain. Are you there, Iain? Oh, he's gone.
Oh,
well.
what a shame.
No, I mean, is it? That podcast is completely different. I mean, you got kind of ideas with what you're doing for the podcast. Is it a big surprise? Is it a big secret?
No, I've been showing off like a couple of bits of equipment and that kind of thing on Instagram. I've been mentioning it a little bit. Essentially, it's myself and Jamie and Sam from the Meeples Peoples podcasts.
Yes.
And we're we're aiming for the first one to be out towards the end of March. It's tentatively entitled Brainwaves to tie in with the giant brain because marketing and PR and all that.
That's genius.
And it's going to be a sort of magazine style news show kind of thing. So I think like board game reviews via the Day-to-Day and Brass Eye. That's kind of what we've got in our heads. Whether it turns out like that is another matter altogether, but that's sort of the idea we have in our heads of what's going to come out. So there'll be like a news segment at the start with us sort of pretending to be CNN sort of news anchors, that kind of thing, and segments. So we've got like for the first one, we've got plans for a Fog of Love review done in the style of a Jeremy Kyle show.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. A photosynthesis review done in the style of David Attenborough. And I'm writing at the moment, I haven't recorded it yet, a segment about collection weight, but written like a sort of like self-help, do you want to lose weight kind of.
Oh my goodness.
One of those terrible adverts you see on TV. Measuring your collection in games per Calyx unit.
Other shelving units are available.
Other shelving units are available, of course.
Terms and conditions available on request.
Yeah. So, like, how we keep up the pace of that kind of output or that kind of thing, I don't know, but we'll see. It's been a laugh so far. We've had a couple of practice sessions just doing the news stuff and sort of like riffing off each other.
Do you just go for it? Do you just select the topic and go for it? I mean, you can't script. I mean, I know I was when we were creaking shelves. Seemed to do a lot of kind of scripted stuff, and I was like, I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah, at the moment, so our plan is like, so at the moment, what we did, we actually just did this a couple of days ago. We grabbed some news headlines. We've got a sort of intro already with the three of us doing a sort of news show style intro. And then like I'm reading out a few headlines, and then we go between us talking about those various headlines, having a bit of a chat. There is plans for a regular weather section, as in whether or not you should back a Kickstarter. Boom tish. Hey. We're here all week. Tip your waitress. And yeah, so like the idea is that we can do the news segment fairly riffy off of each other. It'll be about sort of 10-15 minutes. We can do the segment-y stuff, like this more scripted side of things, a little separately or together as we need it, and then we can sort of shove it all together. Plan is for each cast to be about 30 to 45 minutes at most, like fairly short, fairly zippy. Keep the pace up, and yeah, hopefully initially our plan is every couple of weeks. If we can get it faster than that weekly, we will. But because we're doing
that's a lot of work.
Yeah,
weekly.
Exactly. Doing something that's got like that scripted element to it weekly might might break us weekly. But yeah, every couple of weeks is the plan at the moment. That'll give us some time to produce content in between. But yeah, it's been a laugh so far, and we riff off each other nicely. So yeah,
That's
hopefully
pretty cool.
end of the month, hopefully see the first one of that coming out.
You have to do like a watch it played kind of thing, and just have you playing a game live on air, but not actually show any pictures at all.
I've got a vague plan, so I have been slowly introducing my. I work for Eastside Bikes in Edinburgh, and I've had the guys round for a board game night already.
Yeah,
I've got a vague plan to record a cast where I teach utter newbies a game.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, so I've got now I've got this nice mic. I've got a vague plan to make that a reality at some point in the not too distant future. But
that would be fantastic.
yeah, so like board games with newbies basically.
And just have one of them turning halfway around and going, "Do you know?
I hate this.
I don't take offence, but this is rubbish."
Yeah, no, which would be fair. I mean, that's like one of my greatest joys is teaching new people a game and seeing like them get it and like sort of click into it. So the first time I had them round was on like a Wednesday night when my regular group couldn't meet, and like we had a curry and I taught them Lords of Vegas, and that went pretty well.
That's that's cool.
Yeah,
but there is a little bit of gambling. I suppose there's a kind of the gambling themey element thing, so you can go there. You go.
Yeah, Lords of Vegas is it's one of my go-to gateway games. I think it's fantastic. I love Lords of Vegas.
But then again, we did play Dinosaur Island recently, and one of the guys just bounced off it within about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Just went, I don't get it, I don't understand it, I don't like it, I don't like the colours.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, that. Like, yeah, like, I'm very much an advocate of the thought that there is a game out there for everyone. So I looked forever for a game for my mum, who doesn't really like board games that much, but I eventually found... Oh, the Ragnar Brothers gardening game. Blooming... I've totally forgotten what the name of it is. Blooming something or other? I've totally forgotten what it is.
Quick.
Quick! To the Google!
To the Google cave.
No.
Quick. Go quick. Right, okay.
We're professionals on this. Blooming Gardens, I think it's called.
They were on. Oh my goodness, this is terrible. Right, okay.
I think it's Ragnar Brothers. I think it's called Blooming Gardens.
Here we go.
Blooming Gardens seems to ring a bell in my brain.
And you join us tonight as we are frantically searching.
Blooming Gardens is what it's called. Yeah.
Blooming Gardens, there you go. Who does it?
According to the Board Game Geek, it is definitely a company. Yes, Ragnar Brothers. I was correct. Yes.
Yay! Because that could have been awfully bad if they turned around and says, actually, I think you'll find that the answer to your question is Herbaceous by Edo Baraf.
Yeah. So like she's very much into gardening and she really likes blooming gardens. So yeah, there's a board game out there for everyone, as far as I'm concerned.
There is a board game out there for everyone.
Absolutely.
That is fantastic. So slightly busy then, Mr. McAllister, to be honest.
Yeah, a little bit.
Very slightly busy, just a little bit. Plenty coming up. Plenty to see. Plenty to hear, it sounds like.
Yeah, hopefully.
Definitely. Thank you for coming on.
It's been a pleasure.
I'm very always conscious of the time.
That's right.
If people have listened along tonight and they want to go and find your wares on the internet webs, where can we find you? Where do you exist?
So the main website is giantbrain.co.uk. I am on Twitter as @thegiantbrain. I am on Instagram as giantbrainuk. And I am also on Facebook as the Giant Brain. I think that's everything.
Easy as that, really.
Yeah, I post some of the reviews up on BGG as well. I'm starting to do that a little bit more recently. And as a content creator, the best thing you can do to support me is basically like stuff and share it and that kind of thing. If anyone likes the content a lot and fancies chucking me $1, I am on Patreon and I've got a coffee account as well. Both of those can be got to through the website as well.
Because Ko-Fi is that C is ko-fi.com.
KOFI. I'd prefer it to be called, like, I don't know, Beery or something like that, because let's face it, I'm probably just going to buy a pint with that money anyway.
And you've got the Patreon as well that you're running too.
Yeah, cool. I started Patreon last year just out of sheer curiosity, and yourselves and Unlucky Frog have been good enough to chuck me a buck or two. I might get enough to like buy me a pint at Games Expo, which I'll call a win by the time Expo comes around.
It'll need to be some size of Patreon, because I don't think those pints are that
they're not that cheap. No, they are not that cheap out of the Hilton, that's for certain.
So just a big call out, if you fancy buying Iain a pint, please go onto his Patreon and support him.
Yeah, because writers exist on beer. Absolutely.
He definitely deserves a beer after all the wonderful content that you put out there, without a shadow of a doubt. No, again, thank you very much for coming on. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, there's several places that we exist on the internet webs. You can go to Twitter, you can find us on We're Not Wizards. You can go to Facebook, you'll find us on We're Not Wizards. You can go to Instagram and find us on We're Not Wizards. You can go to YouTube and you can search for We're Not Wizards Tabletop Podcast, and you'll find us there, because our lovely podcast host, Podbean, posts all of our content up to YouTube. It's fantastic. You can find us on Spotify. Apparently, we're on Spotify.
Yeah, well done on that.
I have no idea how that happened. Still in shock. Thinking about putting the Spotify logo on the site. But not sure how to do it. But you can also see us on things like Overcast, and there's a thing called Overcast. There's Player FM, there's Spreaker, there's Stitcher, there's Acast, there's Podknife, and there's also our website, we'renotwizards.com. If you like the show, then please like or rate or review on your podcast catcher of your choice. If you like us very much, please go to Apple Podcasts and consider dropping us a subscription there. If you like us even more, consider dropping us a rating or a review, because that kind of really gets us noticed, which is very, very kind of you indeed. If you are going to give us a rating or a review, remember, I beg of you, do not give us 10 stars, because I'm naturally a little bit confident, but seeing 10 stars, I just go about like I'm just uncontrollable. But on the same time, I'm obviously quite shallow and fragile, so if you give us 1 star, that will make me cry. So give us something in the middle, like a 5, because it's average, and we are decidedly average. But the person who's not been average tonight is the rather wonderful, the rather fantastic, him with a cerebellum you can all be proud of. It's Mr. Iain McAllister from the Giant Brain. So again, thank you very, very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
There are only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Iain?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Brilliant. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Iain.
Goodbye, Iain.
Goodbye, Iain. Every single time. Every single time. You people. Every single time. It's like you talk to each other.
You really need to 2 Ronnies it. And it's goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from him. Goodbye from him. And it is a goodbye from him. So remember, stay safe, roll 6s. Check out the Giant Brain. And as Iain says, if you like somebody's content, give them a little nudge. Tell them you like it on Twitter. Give them a thumbs up on Facebook. Say you like them on YouTube. Just because there is nothing more delightful than somebody actually telling you that they think that you're they like your stuff. I don't know. Iain will tell you, it just makes your little cup of joy overflow, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. Now, until the next time, though, goodbye.
Goodbye.